Hey Tim,
What's going on, Doug?
Oh mate, just loving life.
That's good to hear, my man.
Yeah,
Very good to hear. What's new in Doug world?
What's new in Doug world? Lots of things. I've been going to more gigs lately than
I love
normal.
that.
Yeah, so I went to one on the weekend. I don't know when this is going to come out. Doesn't matter. Podcasts are evergreen. Everyone will listen to them anytime, hopefully. I went to Sly Withers on Saturday at Fortitude Music Hall, and that was really sick. Those guys are awesome. Our mate Jasper mixes them, and so he
Shout out to Jasper.
Yeah, shout out to Jasper and the Sly Boys. They hooked me up with
And Emily doing monitors.
Emily doing monitors.
Emily Hopley, shout out to Emily.
Yeah, I had a chat with her after the show. She had a really good time. She said that's the biggest show that she's done sound on.
I can imagine.
And with Stand Atlantic as the headliner, and they're not a small band either.
No. Today's kind of a day of all S's, to be honest.
Yeah.
You went to see Sly Withers and Stand Atlantic.
Yep.
You're about to cover off on Soft Play.
Yep.
And I'm about to talk about Spiritbox. So
Yeah,
it's a shit day to have a lisp.
Yeah. It really is. It really is. Well, I went first last time. You want to go first this time?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it. As I said, I'm going to talk about... let's talk about the concept first. Let's just remind everyone.
Yeah, of course.
So, this is the PitchShift podcast, as it's been tentatively called, and I think we're running with it.
Yeah.
But the whole concept is that if you're feeling stuck in your ways, you're feeling very, I just listen to the same thing all the time. I don't
really like new music. You know, it all sounds the same to me. It's like, hey, well, have you really looked?
Or it all just seems a little too hard basket to look.
It's pretty daunting nowadays to go out there and sift through everything.
So this is a bit of a, if you like that band, you're probably going to like.
We should have just called this podcast like FFO, for fans of. Maybe that's an option too, but we'll see. But by now, though, you'll know what we chose because that's what it's called. But
we'll have to redub a bunch of stuff for the first two episodes.
Yeah, like really badly dubbed, like the Die Hard, like Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
Oh man,
yeah.
Okay, so with all that in mind, I wanted to talk about Spiritbox, and if you can't tell, I'm a fan of Spiritbox, then I don't know what to tell you.
You're literally wearing it on your sleeve.
I'm literally wearing it on my sleeve. So, Spiritbox, Canadian band, made up of husband and wife duo, Mike Stringer and Courtney LaPlante, and other members of the band that have come and gone over the years. Unfortunately, their previous bass player just passed away.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, not great. But so I became aware of these guys maybe 2016, 2017, and started playing them on The Faction. And part of what I was doing on The Faction there was to it's really easy in heavy music world to if you don't have a filter going on, if you just sort of run with the most obvious stuff that gets kind of put out there, you
could miss a lot of stuff.
You miss a lot of stuff, and more than that, it's a big sausage fest. It's a lot of guys.
True.
And so I had to really actively look for non-male voices to play on The Faction, and I really tried hard to maintain about a 30% or higher content of non-male voices or non-male bands, or on The Faction.
Just goes to show too that like people always talk about like manufactured media and stuff, and prior to the way that we've got all this independent stuff now, how it used to be that you really had to be pushed by radio stations, et cetera, quite like the opposite was happening with you, right? Was you weren't trying to get out there and push just stuff that sells. You had like I want to try and add some quality into things, but it's slightly more difficult because then you've got to really go out and sift through all the noise to find specific stuff, because you want to represent like the not just male bands, but then the flip side of that is also you've got to sift through and find some good bands, because like male, female, like whatever whatever gender,
still has to be
whatever,
good, yeah.
you still have to find good music that people want to hear. And so, like it's a what you did with that radio station was a giant task in itself without giving yourself that extra objective, you know?
Yeah, for real. But so I came across them about, I think it was 2016, and I came across a song called Bleach Bath.
Right.
And it absolutely blew my head off. And I was just like, what the fuck is this? It was really heavy. It was really in your face. And, you know, Courtney's voice is equally as good melodically as it is aggressive in the screaming and all of that sort of stuff. And she's just so intensely talented. It's you can't ignore it. And so I was like, okay, one to watch. And and then, I sort of
didn't have to watch long.
No. Well, yeah, exactly. And it started, snowballing really fast. But then I actually started looking into Courtney and, found out that, I'd already heard her voice before. I didn't realize she previously had been the singer of I Wrestled a Bear Once. And prior to that, she had a band, like her very, very first band was a band called Unicron.
Unicron, yeah. Okay.
Which is a Transformers reference.
Yeah.
And my God, I wish that when I was working with Spiritbox, I wish that I had have known that fact, because I would have told Lachlan Watt when they did an interview, when he did an interview with her, because he's like the world's biggest Transformers fan.
Yeah, right.
So I wish I had have just got like Transformers chat all over Triple J.
Oh, I never would have pegged him for a nerd.
Oh, dude, he's covered in Transformers tats.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
covered in them. That's
what I like about where you've got your Spiritbox tacked on your arm, because it's very much pride of place. There's not a lot around it, sort of muddying it up. Because something that I always thought funny about growing up with and being surrounded by friends with tattoos constantly is that it's not really a done thing that you like stare at someone's like sleeve tattoo and look at all the different tattoo. Yeah. I always thought that's so weird that you would get so much art on your body, and they don't actively make it weird for you, but like it's very obvious you have a Spiritbox tattoo. But I've seen him a million times and I'd never clocked all the
yeah exactly. But yeah, so then just single by single, they just started really ramping up the number of fans that they had. And come early 2020, we all remember that period of time, the pandemic and what have you. Just before the pandemic, they dropped a song called Blessed Be, which I think was really like where the snowball started to hit terminal velocity. Yeah. And like that was genuinely that, and I think to this day is genuinely one of my favorite songs.
It's a banger, and it didn't make it onto the album either, did it?
No, it didn't, which that really bummed me out. But
I did my research before this. I listened to the Downbeat podcast that Courtney did with what's his name? Craig from Stray from the Path.
Yep.
And like to get caught up on their history
Another
and everything.
S-band.
Another S-band, yeah. And I thought it was interesting to hear them, like her talk about the fact that when they left, her and her husband left I Wrestled a Bear Once, they actively went to ground to just write music. And so they spent like a couple of years apparently just working on all this music before they even told anyone they had a band.
Yeah.
And then when they dropped that, it was Blessed Be, and then the one after that was
Holy Roller.
It must have been another one. But so there was a couple songs there where they'd written a bunch of this music to put on the album, but then there was a couple songs that they never put on the album because they did so well, but they didn't fit. And
that didn't make it to the...
Yeah, so like
Holy
they
Roller
said,
wasn't far after that.
Yeah, there was that and another song where they said it was kind of weird because I think everyone expected that all of these singles would be on the album. But because we spent so long writing music and everything, by the time the album came out, like it's weird for a band to lead with a couple of singles that are just standard. Like it's a weird way to start a band.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there was a whole bunch before it as well. There's like the Rule of Nine and
Rule of Nine was the other one.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Rule of Nine, and like there's Mara. the Mara Effect part 1, 2, and 3, and
Yeah.
like there's a ton, but it really started to snowball, and you know, and the viral part of the two of them as well was there was a one take vocal video that she did of Rule of 9.
Yeah.
And that, there was a lot of like reaction videos by like vocal teachers and stuff, vocal coaches,
Yeah.
and that sort of stuff, where that sort of sensationalism about the reaction of like, oh wow, this is talent, really started to like put them into these other spheres of, not just heavy music fans. It was like, just your average music listeners going like, whoa, like
makes people
listen
take
to
notice.
the contrast,
Because the other thing I remembered about that at the time was I was like, there are a lot of people on YouTube that do vocal covers where they go like, I'm just singing over the original song or whatever. Not a lot of bands put out like proper studio like one takes of things. Generally it's a music video or it's a dub of something or whatever. But yeah, the quality of that I think really spoke for itself. I don't think I would have happened across that if it weren't for the fact that it was a live one,
take, yeah. The other one who did something like that went like extra viral on top of that was Ginger. Ginger did I can't remember the name of the song now, but it that went especially viral on that enough. Sort of same level. Yeah, no, it's not. It's
not good enough. You're supposed to be
it's Pisces.
A veritable
it's Pisces.
Encyclopedia. There we go. Now you make me look like a dick. Cool.
But so it made me think like, all right, well, this is a band that's more recent, and it may not be familiar to people who've maybe stuck in their sort of their old playlists, or maybe in their car they've got a CD still running if they've got an old banger of a car. But to me, it's kind of the Spiritbox is kind of the amalgamation, the culmination of probably the last 30 years worth of heavy music. Like,
that was going to be my comment on it, was when she was saying about how they'd been touring for so long. Her and her husband had been, he had other bands as well, but he joined I Wrestle the Bear once, and they were touring, and they realized they weren't happy. Yeah. Yeah. And
so I was going to say, they didn't join that band together. He joined later.
Yeah, she joined, and then she was just like, "Oh, can my husband come along?"
Yeah, because they booted the other guitarist, I think.
I think so.
And then he joined.
And she was saying that the vibe in that band was all wrong for them, because they were, I think it was something along the lines of they were, kind of hired guns, and they weren't really enjoying like the creative process with the band and stuff. And so they went, "Oh, look,
because neither of them were original members."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they just were ring-ins. They'd come in after the fact. But I thought it was interesting because they said they'd been in bands for ages, and then they took this time to just go to ground and just write that music. And so I think that's what's really made it unique, is it's them taking all of their influences and going like, all right, we've been doing this band thing for ages, and we think we're over it. And she was saying like they thought they were on the verge of like, we're just going to be normies. We're just going to get out of touring and whatever. And it was just the fact that they kept writing all this music and getting inspired to make this new stuff that made them go back to it. But you can hear that in the music because of it. It doesn't just sound like a band that has just kept going and sort of forgotten why they started. They regrouped. And I think that's awesome because... like you're probably going to say, like the 30 years of music that you hear throughout all the influences and stuff, it's obviously very deliberate songwriting. Yeah. And not just like, let's make some album tracks.
Yeah. Like I think if you were to go back and sort of look at like, I think they've taken the sort of, the heaviness, but the commercial appeal, of, stuff like what Korn did back in the day. And, they've taken the elements of nu metal, the really shiny production, while still being aggressive. I think it can't be ignored that, and like for better or worse, any female vocalist that comes through the heavy scene gets compared to Amy Lee of Evanescence, but you also can't take away the impact that and the change that Amy Lee had on, of course, people's views on women in or non-males in heavy music. Like all of a sudden, it was like a lot of women were going, I can do that.
You got to see it to be it. That's the thing that's going to keep coming up a lot in this, I think.
So I think, like there's a whole generation that's come post Evanescence.
Yeah.
Of women that have got into heavy music, or, people with non-male voices are getting into heavy music. And, as a result, and it's not just Amy Lee. There's a ton of,
Yeah, that's just one example.
But it that really felt like that was the start of the avalanche, I think.
Yeah. And you could look at the flip side of that coin as well and say, like, a lot of people seeing, all of the butt rock bands that were usually misogynistic dudes and stuff like that. There's a lot of dudes out there seeing, like, Crazy Town, or like, I don't know,
R.I.P. Shifty Shellshock.
Yeah, or like I don't know, Creed's not a bad. I have a soft spot for Creed, but just all the 90s and early 2000s butt rock, like the dude seeing that and being like, oh, I could do that, and you're like, you shouldn't though. You should stay home inside, please.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's nice to see that there's that influence.
Yeah.
Another thing, I didn't mean to hijack your thing, but I did do a bit of research, like, and listen to her talk about stuff, and something else that I thought was interesting was the lyrics.
Yeah.
Because on the Downbeat podcast that I listened to, she made a thing of like, I get so sick of all these metalcore bands and everything always has to be the like, I am the end and I am the beginning and I am the da and here is the breakdown. Blah. And she was like, what, can you guys just like actually write some lyrics about just anything meaningful?
Yeah.
Why is it always got to be this like either I am the end of days evil shit or whatever? It's like, can we just, write some lyrics about something that's meaningful to you?
I mean, we could really get pretty deep into the psychology of, the ego of man there, but, there's a...
But it wasn't even like a male thing either. That's the thing I thought was interesting. It wasn't like, all these dudes don't know how to whatever. It's just the trope of metalcore for a long time had been that. And so I know the song Constance that was like about
beautiful songs about her grandmother.
Yeah, like
losing a brain to dementia,
yeah, and a really cool lyrical concept, and there's heavy bits in it, and
beautiful film clip for that.
Yeah,
if you don't cry during that film clip, are you alive?
Yeah, it's a really good one.
Yeah, it's just from the grandmother's perspective, and people around her are just disappearing, and photos off the wall, and heart-wrenching stuff.
Again, goes to show that they mean business when it comes to making music.
And I mean, the other part of it as well is like, if you were to ask Courtney who her like biggest idols are in music, and certainly her vocals, she will say Beyonce.
Yeah.
Like when she was at Knotfest, when they performed at Knotfest, she was wearing a Beyonce shirt.
Yeah,
big oversized Beyonce shirt. Like she idolizes that more than necessarily anyone in heavy music.
It's funny too, because like I know that you've got you got pop, and like there's a lot of 80s pop and stuff that you really love. And I recently just really got into the new Charlie XCX album, because like it reminds me of 90s stuff. Selfishly, that's part of the pitch. PitchShift podcast kind of thing, is like it's nostalgic for me, but it's also new, and I knew it was a pop culture thing, so I dug into it. But all of the best bands are multi-influence.
Yeah,
they all like they'll be able to tell you. The guitarist from Dillinger always used to wear a Dr. Dre shirt.
Yeah,
and the vocalist Greg Puciato says one of his biggest influences was Jodeci, which was kind of like a Boys to Men sort of band in the 90s. And he's like, I remember I wrote part of this Dillinger singing part with Jodeci in mind. I wanted to make it sound like it was 90s R&B and soul.
I mean, go and look at someone like Mike Patton from Faith No More.
Yeah.
Like, you can't tell me like, and I don't know this for sure, but like, I'm just putting it out there. I would think that probably one of his like more, I mean, look at the breadth of stuff that he's done.
Yeah.
Like styles, like his idol would be a jazz singer for sure.
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
It'd be, someone with like a silky voice, not not anything heavy.
No, God, no. And it's also interesting to hear, again, talking about old music, that there's some people that will say like, oh, my influence for writing this particular thing wasn't just like something I grew up with, but it's like something that I heard from like the 50s or whatever. And it'll be the most obscure, like there's no way, I don't see how you got from A to B here from like, oh yeah, I took influence from this thing that sounds like nothing that would have anything to do with it. But it's, people draw from everything.
Totally. Now, okay, two last things about Spiritbox and then we can move on to yours. One, the other thing that really impresses me about them is that they're like really big production nerds themselves between Mike and Courtney. And I don't know if you know this, but they did a remix of a song called Cobra by Megan Thee Stallion.
Really?
Yeah. And that again is one of Courtney's, like, she loves Megan Thee Stallion. And they did what's called the rock remix of Cobra, and they found out what it's like to like work in like sort of hip hop and pop world.
Yeah.
In that went from they got a phone call on a Thursday or Wednesday night or something, it was out Friday morning.
Yeah.
Like they got a phone call about it. Can you do something? They worked on it for 24 hours, sent over like, oh, here's like a first draft. They ran with it and it was on Spotify the next morning.
Wow. Actually.
And it was like, that's what pop world is like. It's just like, turn it around.
Time is money. Don't waste too much time. Yeah. There's also a producer.
Which says a lot about heavy music. Like if you know, you know, we hang around people who, you know, produce music or are into audio production, all that sort of stuff. Agonize.
Yeah.
Months.
So much time.
Just, sometimes it's just, you know, your first take is your best.
They can definitely turn things around quickly, some of them, but it's more a case of like the if there is time to spend on it, they will spend the time. But, you know, it's a very different industry too. I also didn't realize that the Spiritbox album, there's no Spiritbox songs that have live drums on them. They're all programmed drums, which I didn't realize. So their drummer that they started touring with after the pandemic, they met him the first time the day before their show. And then they went on and they played, like, was it Download, some festival?
They've only just, like, maybe in the last 12 months made him an official member,
Yeah, exactly. And so something that I thought was interesting there was that she said that because she's 35 and the drummer's like 22 or something.
Yeah.
He was still in school and he quit like music school because he was being in music school to become a session musician, and he quit that to join the band. And she said it was refreshing because we were all kind of concerned that we're all, you know, 10, 15 years older than this dude. We're going to have to teach him so much, and is he going to be able to hack it, blah, blah, blah. And she said there was so much that she hasn't had to say to him because he was already in school for that, and he is so dedicated to what he does that off the bat. So it's nice to see there's like a bridge in generation there. I mean, 21 versus 35, that is a generation gap.
Yeah, big time.
So, but heavy music unites all.
Totally. And then the other thing is the track that I sort of want everyone to check out is a track called Rotoscope. And it's sort of a bit more of an electronic, like, and a weirdly different sort of driving kind of track than just like a metalcore track.
Yeah.
It's kind of electronic. It's kind of got like a really bouncy sort of beat to it. And the interesting part about it is like the thing that like I chose this one for is because not the really heavy screaming vocals, but the clean parts of the track where she's singing, I think, or they remind me of a 90s band called Everything But the Girl.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of that band. I don't think I've listened to them, but it's a very similar vibe.
So, well, no, it's not the same vibe. It's, you can almost mistake the vocal for the singer of Everything But the Girl. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, I'll have to chuck that in. So what I'm going to start doing is we want to try and put the music into the Spotify episodes. I'm pretty sure I can do that, so we're looking into that. But I'm going to make a playlist for everyone that we do. So we'll put 3 songs in there. There'll be the main one that we talk about, and then there'll be a couple of other, maybe a live
Things
version or a
out.
cover they've done. And yeah, we'll start with a playlist in the description there for you, and you can go and check that stuff out because for that one, I had to do some research. I hadn't listened to as much Spiritbox as you had, clearly. And I really liked Rotoscope, and I really like Constance. I actually had to learn that song. I played that at your birthday a couple of years ago.
That's right.
So I had to learn that on acoustic, which is rough. But we made that work. But yeah, like that album is sick. I really like that band, and I'm keen to see what they do next because bands in that...
Well, they've got a song coming out on September 5. So
oh shit!
Yeah, so only announced today.
Yeah, right. Which I think that'll be after before we put this out.
Yeah,
but
so a song called Soft Spine.
Because I'm interested to see where they go from here because Rotoscope felt so different to the album, and bands like this typically go through like phases. They don't just put out the same album. Every time. So I'm really interested to see where it goes.
Totally.
Yeah. Rotoscope.
Yeah.
Spiritbox. Check it out. So my thingo is there's a band called Softplay. So Softplay are a UK band. It's just 2 guys, one on guitar with, octave pedals and stuff, and then one that's singing and playing drums. They both sing, but he's the singer.
Yeah, I like the stand-up drum.
And
he's got
the stand-up drum kit, which is like it's like a rockabilly thing typically, right?
I've only ever seen
drums.
one other band do it.
Yeah.
And it was a band years and years ago I saw.
Who was that?
No, what is not a band that anyone would know. It was a band that I saw playing a kit like that at the uni bar in Rockhampton.
Right.
That I went to uni at.
No, I know that there's at least one other band that I've seen. I think it was either a rockabilly or like maybe a ska band that I saw doing it.
Ska band sounds right.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, his drum setup is basically just a snare and a tom, and he's got a couple of cymbals, but like it's a floor tom and a stand, and they're at standing height. And he just stands there, usually just shirt off. He's got his like little fucking running pants on and his Nikes or whatever, and he's just there. He's pretty ripped and stuff, and he is just sweating and pounding these drums while he's singing. And so the song I would check out is one of their newer ones. It's called Punk's Dead. The background of this band I was telling you about, and
also another S band.
Yeah, another S band, exactly. Background of this band I find so interesting. So they used to be called Slaves. They sound like kind of like a modern Sex Pistols, like Anarchy, really basic sort of London punk rock. But they used to be called Slaves, and in a couple of years ago, they got called out for the fact that, it's a offensive band name, but it's just sort of an insensitive sort of band name, and really a lot of the things that they talk about, there's this punk aesthetic of, anarchy and fucking you don't tell me what to do, all that shit, but really, at the heart of it, it's like about social conscience. So, of course, they went, yeah, all right. That's totally fair. We realise now that we thought we were really cool naming it that and being edgy, but we're not above changing it.
What I like about that is that there was a UK band called Slaves, but there was also a US band called Slaves.
Yes.
And that had Johnny Craig in it, who is notoriously a piece of shit.
Yeah. And
I've
seen some interviews with him. I think he is a reformed man, but he was a piece of shit.
Yeah. And they kind of persisted with the name until they were like hounded into changing it, whereas these guys just did it out of their own conscience.
Yeah, they decided to make the call of just like, well, let's not rally against this because really in the end, like, then are we any better than the people that we're lampooning if we can't grow and take on criticism and, be adults about things? Just because you're a punk doesn't mean you've got to be a child.
Oh, and like I put it to you that, if you don't think that punk is, has that social conscience to it.
Yeah.
You are dreaming. Like that is the whole essence of it from the start.
Exactly.
Like anarchy in its roots is about like, it's anarchy at its definition is no government, which is about, for the people.
Yeah.
And meaning everyone.
Yeah.
You know, everyone is considered. So
and who would they be just to sit there and go, nah, we're not changing it, and not listen to anyone, and like, how would they be any better again than the people that they're impugning? But then the beauty of it is, I mean, what do you expect the reaction to be of someone that is maybe like in their 40s or 50s or whatever and grew up loving, you know, like anarchy and punk rock and fuck you don't tell me what to do sort of stuff, to then have a band of younger dudes come along playing similar music and then go, we can't use the name slaves anymore, it's a bit insensitive, we're going to change it to soft play, which feels like they're already inciting like a come on, fucking have at us. Like, tell us that we're soft cocks and that we're, you know, that we're just PC babies and blah, blah, blah. And so they wrote this song, Punk's Dead. And it is just it's a thing where a lot of the lyrics are like the things that people have said about them being PC babies and, you know, that they're soft.
They've gone woke.
Yeah, they've gone woke. It's all woke culture bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And the real clincher for this song that gets me, because I was already a fan of them, and then I heard about this and I saw the new song come out, and I just love how hard in the paint they went with it. There is a feature for the bridge where they...
uncredited, really. It's not... I didn't see it written anywhere.
It doesn't really say it anywhere, and you didn't clock it the first time I showed it to you either.
I really did.
But in the video clip, there is a bridge part, and you come along to that bridge part, and it's some other singer. It's Robbie Williams, which I think is the biggest like slap in the face. Like it's the extra icing on the cake of like, oh yeah, we're gonna make a song telling all the old people, not even old people, but just all the people that think that we're woke children,
all the haters,
and that we're caving to pressure and blah blah blah. That not only do we not give a fuck what they think, and that they probably need to wake up to themselves, but also we're going to use a feature by like this major pop star that's completely in a different genre to us and is even more of a like sellout looking move just to poke more fun at the people that would have a problem with it. I think it's a glorious get, and it plays super well.
Well, the great thing I like about it is that Robbie would have had to agree to it. Like he wouldn't just be getting shit put in front of him and go, righto, Robbie, sing this.
Yeah.
Like Robbie's not the kind of guy who wouldn't do something he doesn't want to do.
Absolutely, yeah.
So he would have either seen that or been aware of the band prior.
Yeah.
And gone.
And it's a
fuck yeah,
classic like video clip feature, right? He's just like superimposed on like a TV that's floating around and stuff. He wasn't
probably
actually
filmed
there.
it on a green screen in his studio.
It's how most of these things, you know, like the fact that he was even actually filmed and in the video clip is probably an extra cost in itself.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, not only did he know, but like he's done the video and sent it to them. And so I think that's great. You should go check it out. The video clip is them set up in like a warehouse with a jumping castle.
They're playing for a kid's birthday party.
For a kid's birthday party. Yeah. It's just all perfect. And the thing is that it is exactly who they were all along. And they've changed the name, they've had the backlash, and they've gone, okay, well, let's just keep doing what we've always done. And now we've got a different target to take the piss out of, and it's the people that were like, I used to be a fan, and now, you know, fuck you guys. But like, then one of the lines in the song is, oh, but I'll still see you at your show. Because it's, fuck you guys, I don't like that you've changed, but like, you know, I'm still going to come, but I'm not going to be happy about it.
Which is just the stupidest shit.
People suck. But yeah, so for fans of, obviously, things like Sex Pistols, can you think of any other like sort of British bands, like maybe 90s or...
I mean, in the 90s, and I know it's not the same genre either, but energy-wise, it reminds me of what the Prodigy were in the 90s.
Yeah.
It's a real geezer.
Yeah.
You know, sort of, you know, like, you know...
Well... To that point, did you see that they did the cover of Shutdown by Skepta?
Yeah.
And so they went on stage. There's a funny story behind that. So they played it at like Reading, I think.
Yep.
So up on Reading, they were in the middle of their set. They go to do the cover of Shutdown by Skepta, which they'd recorded and released previous to that. And so they're doing it. And of course, like it's, you know, it's basically...
Skepta, another S band.
Another S band, yeah. And... So I thought that was an awesome cover in the first place. Like it really suits their vibe, but it's still it's not their music, you know,
Yeah.
like it's rap stuff that's different to them. But so Skepta was supposed to actually be there live, but he was late to the venue. And literally rolled on stage like after the second verse or whatever, just in time to get on stage and do part of it. But he was supposed to be on stage the whole time. But this band's got such a high energy and everything, and then you've got a rapper come out and like one of his hype men and stuff like that. It was just the perfect like marriage of like they picked the right thing.
I mean, we have to do we have to do an episode that's about like hip hop that goes hard with.
Oh yeah,
like yeah, surely there's room for that,
dude. Yeah, actually, I've got a couple on the list for that. There's a couple that come to mind of like bands that, I mean, Denzel Curry's just a quick example.
Straight up,
did the Rage cover on Triple J, cover of Bulls on Parade. That was awesome. His shows and a lot of rap shows now you know, they've always been a hype, but there is a leaning now towards some artists where they're not only incorporating more heavy stuff into their actual music, but also their shows are like as energetic as metal shows now.
Yeah.
Like a Denzel Curry show is just a wild thing to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's pop included. Like,
yeah,
a couple of years ago, maybe 8 or 9 years ago now, like what Halsey was doing, like a lot of it produced by Bring Me the Horizon, but that was as hard out as anything that was, and saying more punk shit than punk shit.
Yeah.
At that time.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, and that's a pop artist. That's fantastic.
Even something I see a lot come up is people complaining about Pink and how Pink at her shows will do like the high wire stuff. And it's obviously not like metal or punk like that, but she's a circus performer to begin with before she was a music artist. So she'll go out there and she'll get up on these wires and do flips and do all this crazy stuff. And a lot of people go like, oh, well, gee, you can't be that good of a musician if you feel like you got to go out and do all that. You know, like it's not
how's
really
that working out for her filling stadiums.
Yeah, it's not really, you know, it's about the music anymore, is it? Like if you feel like you got to be out there like a performing, you know, like a performing monkey bloody flopping around and doing all this stuff. And you're like, one, do you have any idea how hard it is to do that? But then two, the fact that they're bothering to put on any kind of show instead of just, you know, like some of these really like old folk artists and stuff. It's the vibe if someone's got an acoustic guitar for everyone to sit around and watch. But like it's the same thing for the whole time, just with different songs.
I mean, I saw Bob Dylan
at
Blues Fest in 2011. Now, I'm glad to say that I've seen Bob Dylan, but I mean, I had to just keep reminding myself that this was entertainment from a different generation.
Yeah.
Because this was an artist who came out, he was the only artist of the entire, I think that year was a 6-day festival. I think it went like Wednesday through Monday because it was like Easter long weekend.
Yeah.
And I played at that festival and then we got to stay on and I got to watch Bob Dylan, right? And he was the only artist of the entire festival and he was in the biggest tent that they have, and there's screens sort of halfway back at the back of the tent, so at each side of the stage. So like relay video so that, you know, if you're right at the back of the tent, you can actually see him. He was the only artist who opted to turn those off.
Right.
So he wasn't on the screen. But then not only that, and he played like an hour and a half, nearly 2 hour set, didn't speak to the crowd, didn't interact with the crowd, just came out song. 2 songs before the end was like, thank you very much. You know, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Here's 2 more songs. And like, was it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, so it's just like the definition of entertainment has evolved over time. You know,
it's also who he is.
Yeah. And I had no problem with him doing that. If I had have paid lots of money to go and see him, I might have had an issue with that. But it was more like I at least, I guess, was self-aware enough to go, okay, this is boring. But one, I don't have a massive attachment to his music. But two, as far as the rest of the entertainment I've been seeing at this festival for the rest of the weekend, it's high energy. There was a visual element to it. You know, there was all this stuff, and then it was just like 2 hours of like very slow, dirgy stuff, and I was like, oh. But I had to remind myself, like, okay, this is a different era, this is a different generation. This was how people experienced his shows in the 60s and 70s.
And that's the interesting thing, though, is like it's boring to us because it's not what we're used to. But it's interesting because you get this, like, that's who Bob Dylan is. That's who the people are going there for that, and that's what your entertainment used to be like for that. But also, like, I don't think that you couldn't do a show like that now with a new artist, but it's got to be who they are.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, Ed Sheeran pulls massive crowds with just an acoustic guitar. He does shows that have lots of other multimedia stuff and everything, but he can hold a crowd with just an acoustic and singing and get everyone going and stuff because that's who he is and that's his energy. And, like, I respect that. I don't love Ed Sheeran stuff, but I respect that because that's what it's about. But I think that the conceit that because you're doing circus performance stuff in your show means that that's the only way you can hold people's attention. No, it's great because it's who she is. That's why she's doing it. She could just go up and
just belt
and just stand there the whole time.
Yeah.
And gimmicks aren't always great. You don't always need gimmicks, but, like, it's really true to who she is. And then with, like, Soft Play, they have a very simple show. They got a massive stage and they've got one guy with a guitar that stands at a pedal board and a guy that stands, like, drumming and everything, so he doesn't move anywhere. So it's a very static show, but the energy is just so high that, like, it feels like they're cutting laps of the stage. And that's what it's all about for me. Like, I don't need you to be performing like a seal and jumping around and whatever. But you got to come out and be like 110% who you are.
Yeah, to me, other bands, and I know he's still more recent, is someone like Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes.
Yeah,
it's a similar sort of vibe.
And I've seen high energy metalcore bands. That were boring as fuck.
Yeah,
because they were, there's no problem with using in-ears and being on click tracks and stuff, but especially for bands that have been touring for a long time, if you start to really get settled into just playing the tracks and everything and we've got a little synchronized guitar throw here and whatever, you risk losing just enough interest,
spontaneity and
in it that doesn't come across to the audience. So you could be super high energy but feel like you're acting super high energy, and bullshit meters go off.
I mean, have you ever seen Crossfaith?
Yeah, once actually. Yeah,
huge energy.
Yeah, huge energy.
Huge energy.
Yeah, I do not care for crossfaith music at all. I will say that. Like, it doesn't do anything for me. I don't find it offensive. But their live show, I was like, oh man, I'd see that again.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Where are we at? I think we're
probably ready to wrap things up. I think
so.
Man, we went on a bit of a journey. I didn't think we'd discuss Bob Dylan in the middle of a soft play chat.
This is kind of what I was hoping for this podcast, though, is that we get a bit of that to and fro. Because really, the bringing up the bands, it's less about like this is a biography of this band. Actually, it's more about like building the discussion of like, hey, you might like this band, but then also, if you need a bit of convincing, they sound a bit like this. This is why we like them, and then talk about other shit because. That's how all of my favorite conversations about music with my friends have always gone. Yeah. And that's how I find shit. You know, I have playlists in my Spotify that'll be like Joel's Place, August 2011 or whatever like that. Maybe not 11, but like... But I'll have playlists where I'm at a mate's place and I'll call it like their name and when we were doing it and just get them to fill the playlist because they'll be like, have you heard this? Have you heard this? My mate Joel's the one that does it the most. He'll be like, oh, check these 40 songs out that I've like semi-curated for our hangout this time because we haven't seen each other in 6 months. And I'll walk away with like 10 favorite new bands.
That's almost like it's like a photo album.
Yeah,
for songs.
Yeah, well, another thing.
I quite like that.
Question for the audience: I would like to know when you find new music, what do you do with it? I personally I do a monthly playlist. So during the month, if I find something I like, it goes in the 2024-August playlist, and then at the start of the month when it gets to like I don't actively like do it all the time. I mean like. If it's now September and you suggested me some music, I'd go, I'll put it in my playlist. I haven't made one yet. Sweet. So I'll make 2024-September and I'll put that in there. And I'll usually like one of the songs that I've put into the playlist so I can go back to what you showed me.
And so these aren't. It's not. This is when this song came out. This is when I found it.
Yeah, and so now with Spotify, they didn't used to do this. Hot tip for you playing at home. So you used to add something to a playlist, but then if someone showed you that band again a year later and you'd forgotten about them, you go, I'm sure I've heard this band before. There wasn't an easy way to search your playlists for things you've added to playlists before, but now there is. So when you go to add something in Spotify to a playlist, it'll show you all your playlists you can add it to, and the ones at the top
it'll be ticked.
Will be the ones that it's the playlist that's already in.
Yeah.
With the monthly playlisting, I can see, 2023 in December, someone showed me this and I put it in this playlist, and now they're showing me again, oh man, I really need to take more notice of this band.
Shit hot.
Yeah, so that's a hot tip for you playing at home. I think that's honestly the only way for me to keep up with all of the new shit that gets thrown at me.
For all you spicy brain people.
Yeah. That's a real spicy tip, that one. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, well, what do you do?
I have almost like genre playlists.
Yeah.
So like I'll have a new heavies each year.
Yeah.
Playlist that I add stuff into, and then I have as each year passes, I add the stuff that I really dig into what I've got one called Mad Classics.
Yeah.
And that just goes into the classics playlist, and that's just for general listening.
Yeah.
And then I've got like an 80s one that I've got, and then a 90s playlist that I've got.
Yeah.
And so they're just like I can go back to them at any time, but I have a yearly one of heavy stuff.
Yeah.
And then others. Yeah.
No, that makes sense because that's how you...
It's more genre. And
consume.
Yeah, and I find it hard to get out of... Because when I was, obviously working in PR and I was working in, music media and that sort of stuff, I was always thinking of, like, for commercial sharing, for other people to follow.
Yeah.
And so starting a new playlist every month, fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Because... each month you've got to try and build the followers up on it again, and what's the point? So I was thinking when you're doing that, I was like, useless. No one's going to bother to follow a new playlist every month. You might as well just have one that people follow that you update every month.
See, that's the thing, is that it only works for me as like a personal,
exactly.
not a public thing. And then what I do later on is like every 6 months or so, I'll get all those playlists, and because you can't really organize them on your phone, I'll go on the desktop and I'll pull them all into like a yearly folder.
Yeah.
And so then that way I can go back later on and I can be like, oh man, what's something I haven't listened to for a while? Let's flick back a year and pick something.
I love that.
It's a great thing, man, because we used to physically buy a lot of music, and so you could literally go and have a look at your CD rack and go, what am I going to pull out? And it's not really like that now. So that's kind of...
That's a great question to ask. Like, how do you actually, how
do you consume... How do you filter and sort of categorize new music in such a way that it doesn't just get lost in the noise? Because someone sends me a song and I listen to it once and I really like it and I don't add it to a playlist, it's got to come up again from someone else. Otherwise, I'll never know.
Yeah.
It's like hearing something on the radio that didn't get back announced.
Or like another question for punters as well, like people listening, is what do you do when Spotify or, whatever your chosen platform, wherever it is that you're listening, what do you do with their suggestions when they give it to you? Are you just ignoring it? Or are you putting that in a place and going, give that a go? Or, are you using their like smart suggestions, like in Spotify, how you can, shuffle, and then there's another one that's got like sparklies around it. I hate that feature.
I hate it because it's auto on. It's the first, when you just hit shuffle, it's smart shuffle, and then you got to hit it again to make it normal shuffle. I hate
Take your
that.
suggestions out of it.
Yeah, there's a whole episode.
I'm curating this.
There's a whole episode on the corporate greed of Spotify and introducing a feature like that to get more streams on songs you haven't heard purely for money.
Let's make that an episode, because I saw a guy made a video that day and was like, and I don't necessarily like the word that he used either. He was like, gatekeeping is coming back.
Yeah.
Because he's like, we've seen what, this algorithmic paid for thing is doing, and it's not doing it. And he's like, gatekeeping and opinion, I don't like the word gatekeeping, but it was about like people's opinions, like humans' opinions on stuff is going to make a comeback, because we've seen how this is working, and it's just not.
Yeah. It's forcing. I mean, much as all ad like features and platforms and stuff is, it's made it so that when you hit shuffle, it's smart shuffle first up, so that then you're given permission to start inserting things from other things to get you to just keep consuming new music instead of you being able to choose.
It's trying to suggest stuff that it thinks you would like.
Yeah, it's not that it's a bad way to consume or like to be fed music, but what I mean is the fact that they've made it that like if you just a layman just going, oh yeah, I'll just put it on shuffle and it goes on smart shuffle, then they get to feed in whatever. I think you should be more aware of what you're opting into when you do it. It's one of the lesser evils, definitely. This is not
also,
a huge
Doug,
problem.
Do we have an issue with it because it negates the need for our podcast? If it, in theory,
well, yes and no.
It removes the need for human suggestion.
My last little spicy tip is to, if you are working on something or doing something else and you want to just be able to listen to music in the background, I will listen to mostly stuff that I've heard before. I try not to consume new music while I'm busy doing something else, because
don't give it your full.
My first thought is when I hear something that I like and I don't recognize what it is I'm going to stop what I'm doing so I can go and open my phone and have a look and see who's that by. And so if I'm not just freely listen to music and I've got the time to do that, I will actively listen to whatever.
Yep.
But whatever I've already know. But the smart shuffle thing fucks that.
Yeah.
I go, I'm busy, I'll just hit shuffle, and then I'm doing stuff, I'm like, that's not what I put in the playlist, and you look, it's smart shuffle. So again, it's a small detail, but like then what they're doing is feeding me a song, and I might really like that song, but I don't get the time to like go and like it or put it in a playlist, and then they go, I didn't like that. He just sailed straight past it. We'll just take that out. So yeah, one of the many fuck you Spotify's.
On that note,
bye.
See ya.